Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast, brought to you by our sponsor, Jeremy Crawford. Jeremy Crawford, for when your players tell you how the game works. I'm your host, Conor Martin, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Martin O'Dwyer.
Yeah, the three main core texts of D&D is the player's handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and Jeremy Crawford's Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Uh,
I regularly, if I'm ever unsure of a rule, I'm like, someone has asked it. If there's ever a rule you're
mhm.
uncertain about, someone has asked it, and Jeremy Crawford has answered it. Um,
I think he should get
and
more credit for that, to be honest. And never I have never seen him lose his cool in a thread with someone in one of those
oh no,
threads.
never. Yeah.
And I can only imagine the amount of those he must get in a day. Can you imagine how often he's asked about how to explain how sneak attack works?
Yeah, and not only that, getting the same question again, and then like trying to remember, have I answered this for someone before? Do I want to repeat myself? I don't like. He would obviously not want to set the precedent of
Mm.
repeating himself on these things. So he like going through them, being like, I think someone mentioned that before. Can I backtrack and find where I answered this already or whatever? So yeah, we're very thankful for you, Jeremy Crawford, and
Yes.
all you do for the community. Um, but yeah, how are you, man?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a long week, so I've been looking forward to doing this, particularly when what we're going to talk about came out during the week. I was very, very excited
Yeah.
because it's been a minute since we've done any one D&D stuff.
Well, it has and it hasn't. It's been a while since the last one came out, but we were like 4 weeks covering the last one because it was
That's fair.
crazy long.
And thankfully, this one is only 11 pages, I think.
This one's 26 pages.
Oh, is it?
But
I stopped looking at numbers at one point and just started looking at features.
I think the last one was like 30 something pages.
It was
So
it was
it's a bit
37.
shorter. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good third shorter.
Yeah, I definitely just stopped looking at. Do you know what it was? I was reading it on my phone. That was definitely like I noticed 11 and then just stopped. But it's lots of good stuff.
I yeah, this is maybe one of the more all round positive Unearthed Arcanas that we've gotten in a while,
Mm.
or at all with this new kind of one D&D trend. Um, Possibly due in part to the fact that this one is the first one that we're seeing stuff that was already submitted and feedback was already kind of given on, now coming back around with a
Mm.
revised version of it. Um,
Out of curiosity, did you watch that half-hour video they put up on the D&D channel where they talked about the feedback and survey results for the experts class?
yes. It was like overwhelmingly positive, right?
Yeah, I think he was saying what they consider successful is I think it's 70% positive and above, and then extremely successful is 80% and above, and 90% is incredibly successful. And they were saying if it's in the
Yeah.
60 range, it's okay. Oh, sorry, that's the way he was explaining it. If it's in the 60s range, it's okay, this maybe needs to be retooled, but there is something good about it that we can maybe get to if we do redo it. If it's in the 70s range, they're okay, this is good, but maybe we need to clean this up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when it's in the 80s, okay, this is really good. We won't really need to change much about this. And then if it's in the 90s, it's oh, this is perfect. We don't need to do anything. This is ready to go. And then 50
Yeah.
is yeah, this isn't making it. We need to completely redesign and redo this.
50, I think he was saying, is like grounds for like just dismissing it
Yeah,
entirely if they can't get a good rework. Yeah.
and I think you're saying
Um,
the vast majority of everything. I think the lowest scoring stuff they had was in the 60s range, and then everything else I think was the vast
yes.
majority was in 80s.
I think there was one or two things he said actually hit 90s, like early, like 91, 92 or something like that. There was one or
I
two things that hit that high.
I think there were two that hit 89 and 85. I think that's what he was
Or maybe
saying.
that was it.
I don't
Yeah.
think anything hit 90 because I'm pretty sure they would have been very, very yeah, we got these at 90% satisfaction.
Yeah.
But no, it's I was, to be honest, I was actually surprised to see it was that high because I thought there was some stuff in there that would get very, very negatively rated feedback. But it seems they got some pretty solid feedback and answers on what was and wasn't enjoyed and the reasons why. I think he said there were 49,000 participants in the survey,
Yes, I think it was something like that. Yeah.
which is
So
insane.
crazy good feedback. Oh my God.
Because if
I
any
mean,
if anyone's ever known anyone or been in college or known anyone who's been in college, you have been asked to fill out a survey for someone's final year project or I think particularly if you know anyone who's doing psychology or IT.
yeah. Uh, and honestly, the fact that like when you think about it, that's a crazy amount of individual feedback for them to go through,
Hmm.
put into a system, and like some of those things will just be processed on the back end.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, did you like this, yes or no, or give this a 1 to 5 rating, like was in the survey. And some of the stuff will be like they'll have to delve into the little paragraphs people have written and read each of those individually and make notes and try to identify trends that people are
Hmm.
pointing out with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Fair play to them. It's a lot of work. I don't think
I believe they said the like written comments were actually like manually reviewed.
oh yeah, I mean it'd have to be like,
Yeah.
you can process the other stuff on the computer, but you can't do that with the written feedback,
Yeah.
um so yeah, it's a really really good UA. Do you want to dig in?
Yeah, absolutely. I would also say like I would recommend that video as well. Todd Kenrick and Jeremy Crawford. It's really good. Connor,
Yeah,
can you spot something that's entirely unrelated to this one D&D thing that I was really happy about?
entirely unrelated to this one D&D thing.
Yeah,
Um,
it's on
oh,
page one.
it's on page one. Okay, that's gonna narrow it down. Oh, I think we talked about it in our.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, it was something about the martial classes, the warrior classes.
Yeah, it was very interesting. It's in that little grey box there. It's a new weapon system new weapon options for certain classes, and also actually sorry, something else that was mentioned in the video is the new a new system for creating a home base for your character. It's called the Bastion system,
Yeah, that sounds
and
really cool.
I love that idea. It gives me such like Dark Souls kind of God of War, where like you have your hub point that you come back to, and there are certain NPCs you interact with there. Like it's basically what we've kind of done with the guild hall, but like it's actually like written in as an integral part of the game, and I
Yeah.
really like that. I really like that because like it's part of the fun of in particular like a Souls game is like you go around and pick up quest lines, and some of those NPCs show up then in your little hub world, and you can go and talk to them, and they can
Mhm.
perform like services and stuff like that. And I think that's a really fun thing to implement in D&D. And also, they mentioned the new weapon options for certain classes, and they said it was brought up in relation to. Do you remember in our previous one D&D, I had a rant about sharpshooter and great weapon master, and how they like
Yes.
stripped all the damage out. So he made some very good points, some ones that you also made in that video, in terms of like the penalty for the damage boost is nowhere near appropriate by the time you get to a certain level, and that's probably like level 5. Um, but what
Yep.
he's mentioned was the reason that they took out the damage so heavily from that is because certain martial classes are going to get new weapon options and new. I think what he said was either new ways to do damage with your weapons or new ways to use your weapons to augment your damage. So I'm
Yeah.
really excited. I want to see what they've come up with for that. I'd love like just every some kind of like battle master style feat system with the weapons would be really cool.
Yeah, we've talked about, I think we talked about this in that episode, about how, you know, you can do quite a lot of really creative stuff that's inherently baked into all the casters and stuff like that, where you're like, oh, I cast this spell and it has this fiery effect or this acid effect or whatever it is. Whereas when you're a fighter, it tends to be I run up and I slap him with my sword, and then I do it again because I'm a fighter, and then maybe I action surge and do it 2 more times, but whatever. It's a lot of repetitive kind of stuff, and unless you're really into describing what your fighter is doing, in terms of like, oh, I spin around into a flourish and I change hands very quickly and backstrike him or something. You can do that, but it's kind of on your own back to make
Yeah.
that extra flavor. So the fact that they're doing this, I think this was a fourth edition thing, if I'm not mistaken. I remember watching early Ack Inc. stuff when they were playing fourth edition. This is back when Will Wheaton was still on the show.
Mm. Oh well, that is
And
a long time ago.
yeah, oh yeah, it's back before Ack Inc. really got as big as it is now. But they were doing, I think there was an ability that Binwin Bronzebottom had, the dwarf on the
Yes.
show, and he could do a cleave ability. And I think that was specifically maybe because he was using an axe. I'm not terribly familiar with fourth edition, but I think this had to do with the fact that he was using an axe and he had this additional move he could do because of that. And honestly, I think like stuff like that baked into all the martial classes, not just the battle master, could be really, really interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm very
yeah,
excited to see because I think that's possibly maybe the next one they're going to do. See if they're mentioning that early, maybe.
maybe, yeah.
Actually, no, it'll probably be the other priests, the other members of the priest class, probably next.
Oh, we did say it would probably be alphabetical actually, and we have experts first, and then mages would be next. So mages could be the next one if we don't get some other kind of
Yeah,
other thing in between. If we're doing other classes next, it might be mages, but because that would be the alphabetical way to go about it. But we may also get something that isn't class related at all. It could be other rules on backgrounds or feats or something like that. Because they do mention there they have revised feats, new revised spells, the new bastion system. There's a whole bunch of stuff coming up. New encounter building rules.
New monsters as well. I'm very excited for new monsters.
Always excited for new monsters. Um, I'm always excited for it, but then I'm like, I always remember that at least two, if not like more, of my players instantly look at the monster bestiary in any book that comes out, and I'm just like, that's really cool. Martin and Gavin have probably already read the stat block for that one.
I don't do what you and Gav do, where like I don't know if Gav does, but I know you do, where you like you read a new book like a goddamn book, and you go through like page to page, read the whole thing like for cover to cover.
Oh, I don't. No, not at all.
With the bestiary anyway.
With a bestiary, yes, that's different though. But I mean, if I get a book, any of the new D&D books, regardless of whether it's a source book or a rules book or anything like that, my first stop is monsters, magic items, and classes.
Magic items, monsters, classes.
Actually, okay, sorry, I was not saying them in any particular order. What did I say?
You said monsters, magic
Probably
items,
monsters
classes.
first, but only because I DM primarily, so it makes sense for me to look at that. Then magic items, yeah, it's probably then classes last for me.
Yeah, I just love magic items. I want to see what crazy stuff they come up with.
Yeah.
But yes, I don't like. If I'm looking through a bestiary, I'll like flick through it, and like if a particular piece of art catches my eye, I have a look. Or if there's like a particular monster mentioned somewhere heavily, I'll have a look. But other than that, like most of my time when I'm looking for monsters, I'm just I'll go like by movement ability and CR and the kind of theme of where I am and that kind of stuff. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, Connor. We talk about the cleric.
Yes. So a lot of the kind of early stuff we see here is kind of reiterating some of the stuff we've seen in the previous UAs, just explaining why they're doing the playtest material, how it works, the different types of feedback we're going to get, and then we kind of get into the meat and bones of this particular UA, which is a revision of the cleric. I'm actually a little bit surprised how much they've tweaked, because I would have said the cleric is probably one of the more higher rated classes.
Yeah.
Obviously, healers get a bad rep in a lot of different games, whether it's video games or tabletop or whatever. Yeah. But cleric in 5e is known to be very good, very powerful. I saw a clip only just today. I haven't watched the full thing yet of Critical Role. They were doing the two-parter with their Mighty Nine characters. And Jester cast 9th level mass heal, which does 700 healing divided as you see fit. Liam was joking because he's like, that's the most healing she's done in the entire campaign.
Probably is.
Because she'd never healed anybody. No. But yeah, so I'm surprised that Cleric got as many changes as they did, but they all seem to be very positive. Yeah, so we can kind of dive in. So a lot of stuff is kind of very similar. D8 hit dice, proficiency bonuses, and skills and stuff are very much the same. Armor training across the board is light, medium shields. Something that's different is you don't get your cleric speciality, your what would you call it, your subclass, your holy
domain.
order.
Sorry, it's your domain.
Sorry,
it's your domain.
Your domain. Thank you. Yeah, you do not get that at level 1 anymore.
Yes.
So Crawford was explaining for a couple. This is for a couple of reasons. One is, and this is lesser so, but it was a valid point as well. It prevents people from taking that one level dip to get some subclass features immediately on cleric. But the primary reason was that if you're trying to onboard new players into the game, people are going to shy away from cleric if they think they have to make extra choices or read through, because cleric has probably the most subclasses of any class in the game. It's like 14 different subclasses or something stupid like that. So if you're a first time player and you're like, oh, cleric, like a holy priest of whatever sounds kind of cool, and then you're looking at everyone else and they just have to read like the 2 or 3 abilities you get with your class, and then you're like, oh yeah, read those 2 or 3 abilities, then also read these 14 subclasses and decide which of these suits you best. That's a lot to ask for a first time person, trying to decide what cleric subclass they want to pick.
Or like even like if like I think I remember like the first time I ever looked at cleric, I was probably playing D&D for a while now and I had like a decent understanding of the game, but like looking at the domains and like everything else, it took me a good bit of reading just to like really get to the core of it and like kind of figure out which ones I liked and what I didn't. So like I totally agree with you. I think it's really good what they're doing here in terms of like shifting things around and just kind of also bring in, because like there was always this weirdness as well, like particularly if you're doing like a new group and you bring them in. It's like, oh yeah, there's, like say, there's like a cleric, and there's like a druid, and there's like a fighter and a wizard, or something like that, and then like the cleric and the wizard come in. I think the wizard tradition is level 1 as well, right?
Oh, I think it's second. I could be wrong. I'll double check now.
Yeah, but my point is, like, it's kind of, it must be so weird for new players to come in, and one guy's like, yeah, I'm a fighter, and they're like, oh, in like 2 levels I get to do this, and then like other classes who also have their first like subclass step at the 3rd level, they all kind of move more together, and then there's, if someone's just there like, oh, I get
Yeah.
this at 1st level, I guess that's kind of weird, and yeah, I think, yeah, it can be absolutely overwhelming.
It's second level, by the way, for wizard.
Okay, yeah, like
Yeah.
I would imagine, based on what they've said here, that wizard 2nd level will get bumped back to
Will
third.
probably get bumped back out. Yeah, exactly. And probably
He,
the same for druid. Druid second level as well, I
yeah,
believe.
I think he did say in the
Um,
video that I think that is the design going forward, and I think it's a good way
yeah.
to be like, keep everyone feeling like on the same level and unified, and all the milestones going to hit at the same point.
Yeah, and like not only that, but like if you look at like okay, these are three the classes that you tend to get your specialty, your subclass earlier tend to be casters,
Mm.
which tend to have a whole variety more spells you also need to read through when you're picking your
Yes.
spell list to decide what works. It's a lot of reading to onboard you onto any one of those classes. And I think simplifying that honestly is a solid move, and it's a good design philosophy to take going forward.
Yeah, and in particular with cleric for new players, because they can change their spell list daily, and they have quite a large spell list as
Hmm.
well. Even if you're only like doing 1st level or 2nd level spells, like, that's still a lot of reading, like you said, and a lot to onboard with. So yeah, I
Yeah.
full credit to the guys.
Yeah. Up next. So previously, our channel divinity
Mm-hmm.
came in. Oh, I apologize. Oh wait, no. Yes, sorry. Yeah. So previously, our channel divinity came in at second level. It's now a first level ability, and it does a couple more things than previous. So the way it used to work, if I'm not mistaken, previously with channel divinity, was that you would get the channel divinity, and it would basically have the turn undead feature, and that was it until you later got whatever your divine domain subclass. That was the second thing you could do
Sorry.
with channel divinity.
So you start with 2 effects. Sorry, just to correct there. Level
Yeah.
2 start with 2 effects: turn undead, and an effect determined by your domain. Some domains grant you additional effects as you advance in levels. And
Oh, I
then
apologize. You get those at
pick
the same
between
level.
two.
Yeah.
And I as well, it works the same with the paladin, the holy order. You've like usually have 1 to 2 channel divinity things you can pick from.
Yeah. So the way it works now is, so like I said, you have your specialized thing for whatever your subclass is, then your turn undead.
Mm.
The way it works now is you can do the channel divinity a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all uses when you. Yeah, previously it was just two, I think, at the highest, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2, and you got that at like tier 3 D&D, like level 15 onwards, like.
So you could do it three times at 18th level, which is so at 6th level you get the second one, and 18th level you get your third use of it,
Yeah.
which is a long time to wait. Now you just get a proficiency bonus times a day, which we've seen on numerous abilities and stuff like that with different classes. We have a couple of different things here. We have Divine Spark as a magic action, which is something we haven't heard before. Magic action. I think we'll come to that later on in
Yeah,
the thing, if I'm
it
not
is
mistaken.
presented. There's two new terms in this one little section about channel divinity that are both in the end section of this document.
Nice. So you point your holy symbol at another creature you can see within 30 feet of you, and focus divine energy at them. Roll a number of d8s equal to your proficiency bonus, and add the numbers rolled together. You can either restore hit points to that creature, or force the creature to make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, to take radiant damage equal to the number rolled, or on a success, they take half as much damage. So that right out the gate, that's kind of
Incredible.
it's it's really really good. It's not dissimilar from Lay on Hands when you think about it.
Yeah, it scales with you as you level and gets progressively more powerful. Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus, I just punched my microphone. I laid hands on it. No, I really like it. I really like, because what I like about this is, and it's something you already brought up, is the classic kind of stigma about clerics or support characters or clerics or healers. And then, like, it's actually something that came up in the Mighty Nine campaign a lot, was like Jester didn't want to heal and she got shit for that all the time. And like,
Yeah.
it was playfully done, but like, it's the whole thing, like, she doesn't want to heal, she wants to use her awesome spells for damage, and like messing with people's minds and stuff. And I like that you now have Divine Spark tied to your proficiency bonus. So if you are a cleric, you'll probably pack a few healing spells just because you can, and it's useful to have for you and for others. But you at least always have one charge of this Divine Spark. And like, geez, by like level 20, that's like 68. That's 68.
6 times a day.
Yeah, 6 times a day, either like healing or damage.
Yeah.
Like you, like if you wanted to be like a dick about it, you could literally like save all that up, wait for the party to get the crap beat out of him, and then turn around and be like, okay, for the next 6 turns, I'm gonna heal everyone in the party.
Everybody line up. So yeah, that's really it's a really great ability. And I like that they're giving you more uses every channel divinity, and also that they're giving you more things to use it on as well.
And I think like it frees up you as a cleric to maybe pick some of your more interesting spells rather than like an extra healing spell, because you always have to.
Yeah, exactly. You don't always need to pick Cure Wounds. You don't always need to pick. It's kind of funny when you think about it. The clerics are the definitive healers of D&D, and yet the paladins are the ones that get the innate class feature that lets them heal, whereas clerics are almost forced to pick healing spells if they want to contribute in that way. You have to spend part of your spell list doing that, you know.
Yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher, all right, but like I won't complain. I very much enjoyed Lay on Hands.
Yeah, I know you did.
It was great.
Up next we have the Turn Undead. Yeah, magic action. You present your holy symbol. Each undead creature within 30 feet of you must make a wisdom saving throw. If the creature fails the saving throw, it is dazed. We'll get to dazed in a little bit for a minute, or until it takes any damage, or you are incapacitated or die. While dazed in this way, the only action the creature can take is a dash action, and if it moves, it must move farther from you than where it started.
I can explain a little bit more on days right now if you want to save us.
Oh, sure, if you have it up, yeah, absolutely.
No, it's from what I have it here, but from what I remember off the top of my head, it is that. But also they can only either take like an action or a reaction. I think they can't do both.
It's either an action or a movement.
Sorry,
I think you can do one or the other.
You can only do one or the other, and that's pretty great, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And then you can't take reactions or bonus actions at all.
Yeah, that's it. It's
kind of akin to slowed, I think, in some ways. When you're slowed, you can only do like an action or a bonus action, I think.
Yeah, you have to choose between.
Yeah. So yeah, honestly, Daze is a really cool new feature. That Turn Undead ability, I believe, works more or less the same as Turn Undead previously worked. I don't think there's anything. Saving throw, 1 minute. The Dazed obviously wasn't part of it, but that wasn't a condition at the time. Can't take reactions. Yeah, it works kind of more or less the same. They have to move away from you. Yeah. But again, I like that you're given this. You can also do that again up to 6 times a day, which is really awesome. Up next we have our spellcasting. Things haven't changed much in spellcasting for them. Most of the same stuff works as it did before. At second level, here's something you pointed out as being kind of akin to the Warlock, and it's something I love. I have been rambling about how I love the design of the Warlock for a long time, because within the first 5 levels, you make like a whole bunch of choices about who your Warlock is. You pick, your background and your ancestry, obviously, and then you pick your patron, your type of pact, and also you pick your invocations as well. And then at 4th level, potentially a feat or an ASI. So like just in the first few levels, you've made like 4 or 5 really big choices there that are going to completely differentiate you from any other Warlock that might be in the party. They've kind of taken a similar kind of approach to this, which is you get to pick between 3 separate holy orders when you hit 2nd level. This is kind of replacing how some of the subclasses used to get bonuses to their spells, and some of them used to get armor proficiencies and stuff like that. So the first one up is Protector. You train for battle and gain martial weapon proficiency and heavy armor training. You study the teaching about lore. The second one's called Scholar. Studying and teaching about lore and the gods of the multiverse. You gain proficiency in 2 of the following skills of your choice: Arcana, History, Nature, Persuasion, or Religion. Whenever you make an ability check using either of the skills, you gain a bonus to that check equal to your Wisdom modifier. That's actually really cool and kind of unique. It's not just expertise; it's your Wisdom factors in.
Yeah.
And as a cleric, it's going to be your highest stat, really. And then Thaumaturge. Delving into deeper into the divine magic magical abilities. You can prepare one extra 0-level spell or cantrip from the Divine Spell list. See your spellcasting feature for more information. Blah, blah, blah. In addition, you regain one expended use of your Channel Divinity whenever you finish a short rest. Also very cool.
Yes.
I love this. It's like picking invocations or picking your type of pact, whether you're pacted a chain or pacted a blade or whatever. It specializes you a little bit more, and it gives you, and also it kind of like gradually builds that stuff up instead of making that part of the subclass where they're like, here's a bunch of new stuff you need to know about. At first level, just pick a couple spells and play a cleric,
Mm.
nice and simple, no problem. At second level, you have one choice to make. You want to be a bit more fightery, a bit more expert-like, or a bit more magical. And then at third level, here's your subclass. You're gradually building on the rules and the abilities that players will have to learn, and it scales up like super nicely. And
Yeah.
again, I just like that we have the option now of, if I want to be something that wouldn't normally, like for example, I think knowledge domain clerics don't get armor proficiency; they get something else instead. But now, if I want to be a heavily armored walking library of a knowledge domain cleric, I can be that because I can get heavy armor proficiency, which is awesome.
Oh, that'd be so cool. Pick a flail as your weapon, and instead of an actual flail, it's just a really big, massive book with a massive chain wrapped around it, and you've like it tied in a knot, and you use that to beat the shit out of people.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I love this. This is one of my favorite things about this kind of rewrite of the class is they've taken that out of the subclass, made it its own thing, and allowed you. It gives you more choice and more options. So like the advanced players who've been playing for a long time get to, finagle the little parts of their class
Mm.
a little bit more, and the new people coming up get a more gradual slope as they build up their skills over the first few levels.
Yeah, and
Um,
what I really like about those three is like, particularly because at a later level you get to pick a second, you very quickly shape
was right, yeah,
out a character out of those two. Like if you go
yeah,
like Protector and Thaumaturge later, you're kind of hitting almost towards that like Paladin Holy Warrior level. And
yeah,
then like a Scholar Thaumaturge is almost like you've almost kind of that like Warlock, like I've studied to gain more knowledge in the spell, Warlock Wizard
yeah.
kind of almost. I just really like that it's like without even really making any specific choices to your character, you could very quickly fit and create an archetype for your character to fit in to help you, like shape it more.
Yeah, like I said, it's what I've always loved about warlocks is that you can make those choices and you can really hone what you want to get out of this class, and it's also really great for replay value as well because you could play a cleric and you could be like, oh, I'm going to go protector, so heavy armor, and then I'm going to pick some extra skills with the scholar,
Mm-hmm.
and then later on you're like, okay, well I played a cleric who was heavily armored, a bit more of a brawler. Now I kind of want to be more of a squishy one that focuses more on magic. I'm going to pick thaumaturge and scholar, or maybe you'll do whatever combination you want. But the point is, you're really able to hone in on what your character's about, and your skills from your class features will reflect that early on.
Yeah.
We have third level, as you said already. You get your cleric subclass now at
Mm.
third level instead. Fourth level is a feat. Fifth level is interesting.
Yes.
You can use your turn undead feature to smite the undying. Whenever you use turn undead, you can roll a number of d8s equal to your proficiency bonus and add the rolls together. Each undead that fails a saving throw against your turn undead takes radiant damage equal to the total rolled. So this is basically the actually this is yeah.
It's
So
destroy undead basically, right?
it's like destroy undead, except it doesn't have the
The
CR
CR,
kind of
yeah.
rating where it just instant destroys some of them. Instead, it's like everyone takes basically a fireball's worth. Well, at high levels,
Yeah.
basically a fireball's worth of damage. But other than that, it's basically, here's a cantrip that I'm going to cast that will hit these 20 undead standing next to me, or these 5 undead, or whatever, however many there is. But it's a lot of d8s. Like that's going to scale up nicely, and if you position yourself well, you're going to get some really good feedback on that, and it works in tandem with the I'm frightening them, and now they also have to
Yes.
flee effect as well. So that's just a really great improvement on that. I really really love that. While we're actually on that, I do want to bring up one thing that I noticed. And we're probably going to, we mentioned it earlier that the martial classes are getting a rework, or so we're told. And we're probably going to see some new weapon related abilities
Mm.
that definitely fighters can use, and probably paladins and monks as well.
I'd say any Rangers too.
Well, rangers are more in the
They're mar-
experts, right?
Oh,
But I mean,
sorry, yeah,
like,
but they're
yeah,
yeah. They they have martial weapons proficiency though, don't they?
They do, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was I noticed on the divine spell list, um, all the smites are included. We basically have all the paladin spells and all the cleric spells lumped in together, and it makes me wonder. Um, and it makes me wonder. Sorry, but it makes me wonder. Like, can you just because if you look at the in some of the previous UAs, we've seen that when you look at, I think it was the expert classes, Bard, for example, have limitations on the spells they can choose from the arcane list. They have to pick enchantment and illusion spells primarily. And this is like, but there's no limitation like that on this, at least this build of the cleric, meaning you can probably take smite spells from the paladin and just have them on your cleric, and with the combination of that and picking the protector holy order as well, you can really double down. You won't be able to attack twice in a turn, at least I don't think. But you can really double down on going like, here, I'm a cleric, I have a great sword. Also, here's a thunderous smite at a high level because I'm a cleric and I have a ton of spell slots. And I'm just gonna hit you really bloody hard right now. I'm only once, but it's gonna hit really, really hard.
You say that, but we haven't seen the new war cleric yet.
That's true. They may add. I wonder, will they add something like that?
I will not be shocked if the war cleric gets not multi attack, but the extra attack feature. Because I believe they do now. I think, don't they?
Good question.
I don't know. I have cleric open here. I'll have a look. You go
on. War priest. When you use the attack action, you can use a bonus action. So when you use the attack action, you can make a weapon attack as a bonus action. Actually, while we're on the topic, about weapons and bonus actions, apparently I believe it's in this UA. Apparently they have rewritten spiritual weapon, and it is now a concentration spell.
I very quickly only looked over some of the spells, and when spiritual weapon looked mostly the same.
I didn't see it on this. I heard Crawford mentioned it in the video that they were redoing spiritual weapon, and it basically functions the same. Here it is, concentration up to a minute.
Oh no, I can't do the really cool cleric combo I did before.
I know, yeah. As soon as I was watching, as I heard that, I thought back to that time where you were basically piloting an NPC during combat, and she had a great sword. She was a grave cleric, and you had her cast Spirit Guardians on herself, which is concentration. And then in a separate turn, you bonus action cast spiritual weapon, which is not concentration.
Yes.
So and then you would have her use her action to attack someone with her weapon. So it's weapon attack, area of effect attack from Spirit Guardians, and bonus action spiritual weapon attack.
It was very fun.
It was very fun, but very broken as well. Like, I get why they're changing this. I know it is technically a debuff, and it's a great spell, but it can still be a great spell even without this. Honestly, I do feel like Crawford mentioned in the video. He was like, "This is one of those things that we knew pretty much from the start was a misfire on our part. We should not have made this not concentration, but they just haven't really been able to revise it up until now."
Yeah, it does. It is just that little bit too good to be not concentration.
Yeah, I know we all
on the turn you
it.
Summon it, you can attack with it. You can move and attack as part of a bonus action. It is so good, and I think it'll still be picked even with the concentration thing. I just think certain strategies are out now, like that one I came up with that I called the blender.
Yeah, yeah, no, it will definitely. Certain combinations are gone, but again, it's not a bad spell. It was a stupidly good spell before. Now it's just going to be a good spell.
Yeah,
with that fits more within the confines of the game, I think. Even Todd Kenrick in the video I watched, as soon as Crawford said it's concentration, he was like, "Oh no," because even he's like, "I know that's a really good spell because it's not concentration." But yeah, anyway, moving on. Rip spiritual weapon combo with Spirit Guardians.
Ripping pepperinos.
Up next we have class feature at 6th level, or subclass feature I should say. 7th level, Blessed Strikes Your Divine. So this was previously 8th level, I believe.
Yeah.
And they've kind of actually melded them all into one. So in previous cleric things, clerics were either going to be magic focused or martial focused, and that was kind of predetermined by the subclass you pick.
Yeah.
Forge, for example, had
Okay.
augmentations to their weapon, and Knowledge had augmentations to their cantrips. Now it's basically rolled into one, and you have Blessed Strikes. When a creature takes damage from one of your 0 level spells, cantrip, your attacks or your attacks with a weapon, you can also deal a D8 damage to that creature. Once you deal this damage, you can't do it again until the start of your next turn. So it's a
That
once a turn thing, which is same as before.
that's actually a
Um,
buff.
is it?
Previously it didn't that you couldn't. So it was called Divine Strike. Previously, only worked on weapon attacks. This one now works on spells.
Well, yes, but what the other thing with spells on some of the other more magical based cleric subclasses is they get to add their wisdom modifier to any cantrip damage bonus
Ah,
or
okay,
damage
okay.
rolls. So they get that additional damage there, and weapon strikes get that additional D8. Which kind of works out because the average of a D8 is like, it's 5.5 is the average of a D8. So you're talking about a similar kind of
Yeah,
comparable damage thing when you look at it.
yeah, like
Um,
20 wisdom or whatever.
yeah, exactly. If you max out your wisdom, um, but yeah, that was I like this. I do have some concerns because at the moment we only have the only subclass we have to look at is the life cleric, which is kind of the default cleric subclass. But I like that a lot of the other clerics got specialty damage types based on who they were. Like the
Mm.
trickery cleric got poison, which makes sense. The nature cleric was awesome. The nature cleric had like fire, cold, and I think fire, cold, and lightning. I'll take
Very,
it now.
very frightening.
It was it was cold, fire, and lightning damage, and you get to pick. So they could like. It's actually kind of annoying. We're both playing God of War recently. No
Mm.
spoilers, don't worry. But if you've even seen the box cover of any of the God of Wars, Atreus is an archer in it, but he gets different types of arrows. And I
Yes.
thought, oh, it'd be really cool to play a nature cleric because he is into nature and he loves animals and stuff.
Yeah, he uses
Play a
Vanir
nature cleric
magic.
with
Though.
a bow. Sorry.
He uses Vanir magic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So play a nature cleric. I was thinking like, okay, here's my build for Atreus, right?
Okay, cool.
It's basically just nature cleric, um, and you go at least in as many levels in as you need. I think 8 levels to get that augmented thing, so you can fire different elemental arrows, which fits him.
Mm.
You play a furbolg because furbolgs are giants, but they can also talk to small creatures and communicate ideas to them, which he can do as well. And then probably take a couple levels into Druid as well for some basic shapeshifting kind of
Okay,
stuff as well.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's my build anyway for Atreus, and I would love to play that, but I don't know where cleric's going now because we may not have those different damage types.
Yeah, also to point out about Blessed Strikes, that doesn't actually scale. The other one, it went up, it scaled. You got an additional damage die at level 14.
Um, Correct. The weapon one scales up, the other
Yeah.
one doesn't. Yeah, that's right. Actually, yeah, that's actually good point. We don't get an improved
No.
Blessed Strikes anymore, do we? Interesting.
I'd imagine maybe similar to what you were saying there, that'll probably be compensated for in the strength of the subclass. They'll probably get some add-on there.
Yeah, maybe. Um, oh, that could be it, maybe. Yeah, I do hope that we do get that because again, I loved that they had thematic damage types. The Forge gets fire as
Yeah.
well. All these things that make perfect
Yeah.
sense. Um,
Although I don't feel
yeah.
like this cleric is going to be lacking in damage.
No, yeah, no, not at all. But you know what? It's more just flavor than anything else.
Yeah.
I like that you can do more on brand stuff. But yeah, Blessed Strike's still good. I like that they roll that into one, and it's also part of the base class now instead of being a feature of every single subclass. It's just a base class ability.
Yeah.
8 is another feat. Ninth is you choose your second holy order. So of the 3, you pick one initially, and you can pick one of the other 2 you didn't pick at 9th level.
That gives a good little fun opportunity for like storytelling as well. Maybe like in the
Yeah.
time between in that time between when you pick your first one, if you know what one you're going to pick second, you can maybe like plot out that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you can kind of like have a nice character development moment as to why you're suddenly wearing armor now, or why you've decided to be more book oriented and study oriented.
Yeah.
10th level, a subclass feature again. 11th level, divine intervention. So when did divine intervention come in previously?
I believe around the same time. Where are we?
Oh, it was 10th level before.
Yeah.
So that's not too different. So as an action, you can describe the assistance that you seek. You roll percentile dice. If you roll the number equal to or lower than your cleric level, the divine power intervenes. The DM chooses the nature of the intervention. The effect of any divine spell is appropriate. I like that phrasing. The effect of any divine spell is appropriate. If the intervention occurs, you can't use the feature again for 2d6 days. Otherwise, you can use it again after you finish a long rest. So if you fail to use it, that's kind of the same as before, I believe. There is something different on that, though. Yes, previously it was a solid 7 days.
Yeah.
So if it is successful, you can't use this again for a solid 7 days. Now it's just roll 2d6, which would kind of average out at about... Actually, exactly 7 it averages out at.
You could also get really lucky and have it back in 2 days.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I like, and then look, we part of the reason we play the game is we like rolling dice. So let's roll more dice.
Also, Divine Intervention still one I think responsible for one of the most hype moments of Critical Role Campaign 1, when that finally came off for Pike, and a god punched a dragon in the head. Like, that was just, oh god, like, I am so excited to see that animated. Dear God.
We have 12th level is another feat, 14 levels is a subclass feature, 16 levels of feat, 18th level, which is our capstone ability now based on the new format of classes, is Greater Divine Intervention, which is basically that it goes from 2d6 to 2d4 days, which is even better.
Yes. And it
meaning
also
that you
automatically succeeds.
Use Divine Intervention feature. Oh wow. I glossed over that my first read through.
Yeah.
So you don't even need to roll the percentile dice. It just works at 18th level. I suppose look, at 18th level you already have access to 9th level spells. So
yo bro, I got God on speed dial.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Let me call my boy. That's awesome. Yeah, and then you get it back potentially a lot faster as well.
Oh my god, do you know what this is? This is an Infinity War when Korg is playing Fortnite and he's like, Thor, this lad called me a dickhead. Talk to him. It's literally what you're doing.
I'm gonna crush your house. 19th level is a feat, and our 20th level is our epic boon again. There's some suggested cleric spells, which is kind of the thing we're seeing here. I don't believe life cleric is very different at all, is it?
Let me just quickly pull up the life domain here.
You get your domain spells, which are
obviously it will come in later.
We get different spells actually. So it was previously at oh yes, actually, because these are being changed around, aren't they?
Yeah.
So previously you got your thing at first level. So at first level you get Bless and Cure Wounds. Now you get your thing at third level. So you get Lesser Restoration and Prayer of Healing. At third level previously you got Lesser Restoration and Spiritual Weapon. Now you get at 5th level Mass Healing Word and Revivify. Then we got Beacon of Hope and Revivify at 5th level. They're kind of similar. They changed a couple of them.
Yeah.
What are our 9th level ones? Mass Cure Wounds and Raised Dead. Mass Cure Wounds and Greater Restoration. So they swapped a couple out.
Yeah.
But more or less the list is the same, just bumps down a little bit. I suppose actually now you used to get 2... every odd number up as far as 9 you used to get 2 new spells, but now because they've gotten rid of first level you only end up getting 8 spells instead of 10 like you got previously.
I think you don't get Bless and you don't get Cure Wounds, but like you then have Divine Spark that you can use to heal instead of having Cure Wounds, and
which functions very similarly. But yeah, let's see here now. Cycle of Life. Oh yes, I think this functions the same. When you cast a spell of first level or higher that restore hit points to a creature, the creature regains hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level. I think that stays the exact same. 6th level is Preserve Life. Expanding one of your this has changed. Okay, so Blessed Healer was 6th level before. The healing spells you cast on others heal you as well. When you cast a spell at first level or higher, it restores hit points to a creature. You regain hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level. That is actually on 10th level of the revised version now. Instead, at 6th level, we get Preserve Life. You can use your Channel Divinity. As an action, you can expend one of your Channel Divinities and present your Holy Symbol, restoring a number of hit points equal to 5 times your Cleric level. So at that level, 30 hit points.
yeah, that's massive.
That's pretty good. Choose a creature within 30 feet of you, or any creatures within 30 feet, including yourself, and divide those hit points among the chosen creatures. I assume you can divide them as you see fit, or do you have to give everyone equal amount?
Ooh, they say divide those hit points among the chosen creatures, so I feel like that's kind of evenly. Usually they'll say determine how many you want to give or whatever.
Yeah. Um,
Like I wouldn't be
this
opposed to you being allowed to give exactly how many, but like there is a limit on it already anyway.
yeah. And then you can this feature cannot bring someone back past more than half of their hit points. So if they have 40 hit points normally and they're at 20, you can't heal them any further using
Yeah,
this ability. At least you have to use something else.
this is your like in
Um,
case of emergency ripcord spell. Like,
this is the battle is not going in our favor.
yeah,
Use this now. Um, and we have Supreme Healing, which I think functions the same. When you would normally roll one or more dice or so hit points, instead you just use the maximum number for the dice. I think that functions the exact same as before. Don't roll the dice, instead use the highest possible number. Yeah, so it functions the same.
yeah.
If you're casting a spell that has a healing spell, just add up the maximum number of all the dice, and that's how much healing is done.
And that's why life clerics are the best healers in the game.
Yeah, oh, without a shadow of a doubt. um, yeah, that's really good. I overall I really like what they're doing with the cleric here. Like I said, I'd like to see just what the story is with the blessed strikes. Are we going to get more specialty ones? Are
Yeah,
like previously the clerics had a very uniform way of their subclasses functioning. They would always get something at the start, which is like a proficiency, whether it's armor or something like that. Then they'd get at 8th level they either got the weapon divine strike or the one that works with the potent cantrips, I think it was called.
yeah.
Um, and there was always kind of a very uniform way that the subclasses worked. I'm curious if we're going to get some more specialized things, or they'll shake up the system just a little bit. Because other than giving your specific domain spells, I don't see how they could uh, kind of take what's been done here with the life domain and recreate that for every of the 14 or whatever it is cleric subclasses.
Mhm.
Only because these are very unique abilities that have to do with healing and stuff. You're probably going to have to come up with something somewhat unique for each of the subclasses.
Yeah, I'd like to think they'll do like a bespoke like thing for each class like that. I would, but it also wouldn't surprise me if maybe they do that. They do drop some of the cleric domains, maybe some of the less popular ones or the ones that aren't as like satisfactory, maybe. But I would hope to keep them all because like I feel like there's a way you can play each and every cleric domain. Like I think cleric is a very well fleshed out kind of role, but not like some of them. Like there's obviously some that I think are better than others. But I think all of them you can get at least make a decent character out of.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I do just hope we do see more like specialized kind of stuff and like domain specific abilities, because like obviously maybe like it's more of a thematic thing that the life cleric doesn't have, like, oh, I get more damage when I hit someone because I'm a healer and I need that. Like, if you're like specializing into
Yeah.
healing, maybe they don't want to give you that extra damage. Like you can still do loads of damage because you cleric spells, you can literally call the wrath of a god down on someone. Like clerics are awesome. But the life cleric, you were very specifically was saying, I am a healer, I am the healer, if you will.
I'm preserving life. It's
Yeah.
kind of my whole shtick.
Hippocratic oath and all that.
Exactly. So yeah, we move on to some of the revised. It's actually funny because I know they. So in this UA they've made a point. I believe it's in the UA. In this UA they've made a point of. Oh wait, I take it back. Yes, sorry, I was reading the older UA and I was like, oh, this section was still titled character races, but I was reading the old one. This one is titled character species, because they've changed the terminology. So going forward, D&D won't use races when referring to the different peoples that you can kind of create your character with. Instead, they're going to use species, which is getting a mixed reaction online. For a whole bunch of different reasons. Literally, I think every single person I read a tweet or comment about has a different reason why they do or don't like this. For me, I think I don't really know because obviously the word race is very problematic and has real life connotations that we kind of want to not have in our fantasy game. But for me, so I've seen some people say that species isn't much better. Some people say that it is an improvement. Not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Some people, and I kind of agree with this, some people say species is a very sci-fi way of putting it for a fantasy game, which I kind of see. It's more of a scientific word than
Yeah.
than ancestry or heritage or whatever. Some people are suggesting ancestry and heritage, and personally, I don't know if it's the right answer or not. I feel like ancestry is one I like. That kind of talks about for me, heritage is like more of a cultural thing, whereas ancestry is like the people that came before you, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So that makes a bit more sense to me. But again, I guess I'll get feedback on that in the community, and hopefully things will settle in what is
Yeah.
whatever is the best, kind of terminology to use
Yeah.
for going forward.
Like I think species is an improvement anyway, personally speaking. But like
Yeah, I definitely think
obviously like
it's a
obviously
step.
but like obviously both of us are speaking from like a position of privilege here, really.
Yeah,
Um
absolutely.
being the whitest of white men. Um
I don't know about that. It kind of goes like Scandinavians, Russians, then us.
okay, fair. Yeah, fair. But yeah, I think it's a
They
step
are
in the right.
very pale.
Yes, we're exceedingly pale.
We
Uh
were. I was sorry. This is a quick side story on how pale I am. When I was on my honeymoon in Mexico, I was in the pool one day playing volleyball with a bunch of randomers. But they were like pretty much most were American, I think.
mm.
Um, and even the other white people I was playing with were still considerably more tanned than my pale Irish skin. And also I was only in the pool playing for about an hour, maybe a little bit more, and I got horribly burned that day.
Not a tanner then.
I didn't I don't tan. I go from like, oh, everything, I go from like a highly reflective surface to you're pink and red and sore all over. Just there's like my tanning period lasts for about 30 seconds in the middle of those two time periods, and then that's it.
Shockingly, for quite a pale dude, I burn, but I also do tan decently. So if like I went away somewhere for a couple of weeks, I'd come back with a decent tan. But that is because of my Irish ancestry.
There we go.
There we go. Trying to reel it back in somewhere from Mexico and suntans.
Sorry. Sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent there.
Your guy,
Um,
Connor, the furries are back.
uh, okay, look, I gave some feedback, all right?
Yeah.
And honestly, when I heard Jeremy Crawford talking about it, I think he might have read mine personally. Because, almost all the stuff I complained about when it came to the Ardling was more or less addressed. Now,
Mm.
I still don't like them, but but it's definitely better than what it was. So
I like certain things about them, is what I'd say.
yeah, so previously the Ardling was a kind of
Abomination.
uh, they were just they were just kind of nothing. They did nothing. They did everything. Okay, they did too many things. They did too many things, first of all, and they did none of them particularly
Yeah,
well.
they were the
And
most
they
5 out of 10 race and the most 5 out of 10 species in the whole damn game.
Yeah, very much so. I wasn't impressed with them, both either thematically, how they fit into the lore, or mechanically
Mm.
either. What I literally said in my feedback on the last UA, on the first UA, I said, look, I think I was even very apologetic about it. I'm like, look, I can see what you're trying to do here, but
Listen, kid.
but but honestly, I feel like Ardlings don't do anything mechanically
Mhm.
that Asimar don't already do better. They can already, fly and do damage, and they have resistance to both radiant and necrotic, whereas the previous version of Ardling only had radiant resistance. I'm like, everything about these is a watered down version of the Asimar, with an eagle's head on it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't doing it for me. So mechanically, it kind of flopped in my head, and also I was kind of like, they really leaned into the celestial side of it in the first
Mhm.
version. And I'm like, we already have Asimar though. Like,
Yeah.
where do these guys? Why do we suddenly have two celestial? I almost said races. Two. This is gonna take some getting used to.
Yeah.
Two celestial species. And I feel like that kind of counter that's off balance then,
It
because
felt
we only have the Tiefling, which is the only
yeah.
lower planes
It
species
felt
and stuff.
very shoehorned in.
Yeah, exactly. So again, we already have a celestial thing. We already have
Mhm.
what, and that celestial, those celestial people do everything these guys do better, except be furry. So like, I wasn't feeling it, and I gave all that feedback. They've come back with it, and it seems like a lot of people agreed that,
Yeah.
hey, we already have the Asimar. Are the Asimar being? A lot of people thought the Asimar were being replaced.
Yes.
Which thankfully they are not,
They
because
had
I really
to
like the
address
Asimar.
that specifically in the video
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
They did, and I'm glad though, because I really like them
Mhm.
as a concept. I think it's a really, really cool idea. They kind of remind me of like Asgardians, the fact that they're like these super people that are like
Yeah.
from the heavens or whatever. So yeah, they've come back. Most people wanted them to lean more into the animal side of things and less into the celestial side of things,
Hmm.
um, which I get, and they have definitely done. But also, I'm still kind of unimpressed with them mechanically. I'm happier with the steps they've made with the thematically in terms of leaning more on the animal thing. So basically, they've gone from like being very, very celestial to um, Ardlings. Celestial animals roam the beastlands, a plain of untamed beauty and wild nature. Many of those otherworldly animals serve the beast lords. And in the early days of the multiverse, some of their animals evolved into bipedal forms. Bipedal. Among their numbers are Ardlings, people with beast-like heads, keen senses, and an innate connection to the divine magic. Long ago, the ancestors of Ardlings migrated to the material plane, and Ardlings can now be found on many worlds. An Ardling has a beast's head resembling that of an animal. Depending on the animal, the Ardling might also have fur, feathers, or scales. Some are little and others are hulking. Ardlings are as varied as the animals they resemble. So right away, there's way more in that about them being kind of animal people than there is about
Yeah.
the celestial stuff.
You know what I just thought of as well? Like Shifter exists.
Shifter is already better. Shifter is infinitely better.
Yeah.
See here, so here's what happened, right? They've patched one hole in the ship that I've pointed out, which is that look, we already have the celestial people. We don't need another celestial people, and they're like, cool, we'll just lean more on the animal part. I'm like, great. I'm like, also, we already have a celestial people that's better mechanically, so maybe don't lean so heavy on that. And they're like, cool, we'll lean heavy on the animal. Now you have an animal person who's worse than the shifter mechanically, the other animal person. So I'm like, I just feel like I don't know. I just feel like they don't have a place. They fit somewhere between Asimar and Shifter, and I just don't feel like I would just play one of those two
Like,
because both are either mechanically better or more thematically where I
yeah,
want to be, you know?
because you don't get to change these. Like with a shifter, I'm pretty sure you can get something equivalent to everything. One of these, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Shifter can't change, I don't believe, on a long rest or anything like that.
No.
I'll
Can a
double check,
shifter
but
not, like,
I'm 90% sure they don't.
a shifter is not a race I've ever looked heavily into. I just know that they can change certain body parts to gain advantages.
I know they're like an Eberron specific thing, but I
Yeah.
actually love them. I think they're one of my favorite. And like, I just think they're really, really cool.
But like,
So 1 second now. Oh, stand by. Stand by.
standing by.
When you shift, you temporarily exchange element beast. Yes. So it's listed here as their sub race, but again, this is an older book. The beasts within you shapes, the four magical races and piece of choose a sub race. Right? Yeah. So it basically functions as a sub race mechanically.
Okay.
So it is something you pick at the start and you stick with then. But see, here's the thing: all of them are like, it's just all cooler than. And it's just better. I should. I can't even,
It's Saki's Ardling, me.
I just okay. So look, here's the thing, right? So we have with the Ireland, we have some normal enough stuff about their lifespan, moving 30 feet, the kind of standard enough stuff.
Yeah.
And their animal ancestry is they pick to either be a climber, a flyer, a racer, or a swimmer, right?
Mhm.
The climber is you have a climb speed. And also when you deal unarmed, when you do an unarmed strike to a target, you can add your proficiency bonus. I think it's once per turn. Yeah, once per turn. Yeah. So you're adding between 2 and 6 additional points of damage once per turn on specifically unarmed strikes.
Mhm.
The flyer, you don't actually fly, funnily enough.
More of a glider, really.
More of a glider. You have vestigial wings. It's like if you read this as flyer, and then the first line is you have vestigial wings. You're like, huh, this is not off to a good start.
In my head, it's you know, like any time in a cartoon when like an elephant gets bird wings and they're like these tiny wings that like stick out.
And they're struggling to keep up the enormous elephant.
That's
Yeah,
all I'm seeing in my head right now.
yeah, pretty much. As a result, you. Sorry, both the first lines are just terrible when the name is flyer. You have vestigial wings. As a result, when you fall, why would I fall if I have wings?
You have to fall 10 feet. So if you fall 5 feet, you just eat shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When you fall at least 10 feet, you can use your reaction to safely glide downwards, taking no damage from the fall. In addition, when you take the jump action, you can flap your wings to gain advantage on the ability check. So basically, you're neither a flyer, you're a flyer who you're called a flyer, but you actually jump and glide,
Yeah.
not fly.
Yeah.
That, and again, look, these, okay, I'll just say now, the other thing you get after this, the specific beast stuff, is you get keen senses and you get one cantrip. Sorry,
Yeah.
yes, you get one cantrip
From the divine
that you can
spell
swap out from the divine spell list. Both of which are honestly kind of minuscule, if I'm going to be honest. And then none of these four specialties are in any way powerful, particularly when you consider Keen's. Oh, wait, hold up.
So,
everyone stop everything they're doing right now.
I have one
because
suggestion that could possibly make some of these good.
hold up. Let me just
a
right
4-letter
away.
word.
Okay, so right away, I'm looking up. If we were to pick flyer for our audio listeners, I'm making air quotes when I say that. I'm getting worked up now, Martin. See what you're doing to me. So so you can basically reactionary glide down to avoid taking damage, and also when you jump, when you take the jump action, you can flap your wings and get advantage on the ability check, which is likely like an athletics or strength check to try to jump further. So you get that, you get proficiency in perception, and you get one cantrip. All right. Now let's go across to the flyiest of all fly boys, the Aarakocra. You get flight. Already they're winning.
I love this
because they're already better at flying than the flyer.
I believe they too have keen senses, and they're keener.
They did. I think that was an older build. I'm looking at the Mordenkainen's version, so they have a fly speed equal to their walking speed. That's fine. Technically, you can't use it when wearing medium or heavy armor, but hey, guess what? The flyer can't fly even when they're not wearing medium or heavy armor, so who cares? You have talons, which are a d6 plus your strength. So you don't need to use weapons. And then a third level, you get gust of wind spell. You want to cast a straight, you can do this multiple blah. Once you cast a spell, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. So you get what is, I believe, a second level spell. I think gust of wind is second level. It's a second level spell. You get unarmed strikes that are a d6 plus your strength. And then you get an actual fly speed. And the flyer gets a proficiency that you can take with literally any character you build with any combination of anything. And then you get one cantrip from a spell list that doesn't have a lot of cantrips. And then you can just not fall. You basically, it's not a flyer, it's a not faller, because you can just reactionary glide. All right. So anyway, rant over, don't like.
So the only way I could see you fixing this, if you're determined to play an Erdling, is if you played a monk. Then some of these come in handy. Like the first one, the climber, you get to add a proficiency bonus to a hit once a turn. You're hitting off by monk. The flyer is kind of redundant if you pick a monk, because monks get slow fall. The racer, however, you could literally turn into the Flash with the racer and a monk and step of the wind.
I mean, look,
the racer,
let's be honest, there's plenty of combinations of monk and other things to make you go stupid fast in this game.
But I just like the idea of it. So the racer is that when you use the dash action, your speed increases for that action. The increase equals 10 times your proficiency bonus. So that's another 60 feet at level 20. Which is like pretty solid. But again, like you could, if you really wanted to do like crazy like Barry Allen monk stuff, you would just pick it to backseat because they have the feline agility.
There you go. Who, guess what, also looks like a cat if that's what you're in.
Yeah, there's also the Leonin.
Yeah, if you want to be a brawnier cat, that I think they have a roar ability, don't they?
They do. They have a roar.
Like to scare people or something. Yeah.
It's like a.
So the next one is. Yeah. The next one. Oh, by the way, so. Okay, this is something I just noticed in the moment, right?
Okay.
So for climber, we have bear, cat, lizard, squirrel. That all makes sense.
Yeah.
Flyer, we have bat, eagle, owl, raven. Funny, they can all actually fly. Racer, we have deer, dog, horse. I'm with you so far.
Yeah.
Triceratops.
But Connor, don't you know
when I think about When I think about fast dinosaurs, I immediately think about Triceratops. You know, the one that basically has an open umbrella around its neck that catches all the wind.
Am I having a stroke, or was there a cartoon when we were kids that were like dinosaur motorbike riders, and one of them was definitely a
Wait,
Triceratops?
I swear to God, if you were
Um,
bringing up dinosaurs right now, I'm gonna lose my fucking shit.
I don't know. I might be smashing like Biker Mice from Mars with something else.
Dinosaurs.
It's no.
No?
I'm gonna have to Google this. God damn it.
Okay, you Google that. I'm gonna continue ranting. We had the swimmer as the last one: crocodile, dolphin, frog, shark. I presume, by the way, uh, um, these are like what you call it, suggested animals. Of course, if it's a different swimming animal you want to pick, I'm sure you can probably do that as well.
I'm sorry to break your heart, Connor. I was not talking about dinosaurs. I was indeed smashing two different shows. One of them being Biker Mice from Mars together.
Biker Mice from Mars, and what was the other one?
I can't remember. Some show with dinosaurs in. I watched a lot of those when I was a kid.
The early 2000s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that Sam from Critical Role, why am I blanking on his last name? Sam Riegel. He voiced Donatello in. There's a whole arc with the Triceratons in like the second or third season of that one.
Yeah, maybe
you're melding that together. But hey, if you wanted to play a Triceraton, so the racer side does when you take the dash action, your speed increases for that action, and increases to 10 times your proficiency bonus. I actually like this ability. I do actually think that's a cool ability, and it's different than just giving you the ability to dash as a bonus action or whatever. It's like that's a unique rule specific to these guys. So I actually kind of like that.
Yeah.
Swimmer, you can hold your breath for up to an hour at a time, which is turtles can do. And you have swim speed equal to...
Every feature you just bring up another race who does it better.
Interesting. You have a swim speed. They're called swimmers, and they have a swim speed. That's interesting. I'm looking at you, Flyer.
Also, swimmer is just the most powerful as well because of the last sentence.
You get resistant to cold damage. You get a resistance on top of it. Oh, by the way. Okay. Do you want to know how who's better than this though? Sea elves.
Yeah.
Triton. Water Ganassi.
Yeah.
Everything about these guys is copied and pasted from a different ancestry. Species? God, the word won't stay in my head. And everything is copied and pasted from someone else.
We'll be live streaming Connor filling out the survey for this One D&D.
I really don't. I'm sorry to whoever came up with this and whoever really, because clearly they want to make Ardlings work, right? And I get that. I really do.
There's someone at Wizards that has a furry suit.
Yeah, exactly, and they're in a position of management because they're not letting this. They're a dog with a bone. Get it? And they're not letting this go. Yeah. Okay. So that's that. Look, I think literally the climbing stuff. Tabaxi have a climbing speed. Oh my! No, hold up.
They also have unarmed damage.
They also have unarmed damage. So climbers are basically a worse version of Tabaxi. Flyers are a worse version of Owlin and Aarakocra. Racers, Tabaxi can already do that better as well.
Can also full flight from a feral tiefling.
Feral tieflings can also do it as well. And swimmers are a worse version of Triton, Water Ganassi, and Sea Elves.
Yeah.
There's nothing unique or interesting, and collectively, they're a worse version of the shifter. Look, again, I don't know. I feel I honestly, at this point, the first time they showed it to us, I was like, I don't get this. The second time now, I'm actually more bothered the second time because you've even pivoted your position and tried to readjust it to make it work, and it still doesn't work. I'm like, at a certain point, I think you just need to let this go. Because I don't feel like thematically or mechanically there's anything that can be offered in the realm of a celestial animal that isn't already being offered by a celestial or an animal, you know?
Yeah.
And look, if you really want to play a celestial anything, I brought this up last time in the original rule set. They talk about having people from having parents of different species or different backgrounds. You can technically just be like, oh yeah, my dad was an Aasimar, my mom was a Tabaxi, so I'm a holy cat person. Done. And in the same one, then they're like, hey, what have you ever wanted to play something that's both holy and an animal? And you're like, well, you just said I could do that myself with the rule set that you mentioned 10 minutes ago. It's
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm tired now.
Shall we talk about the species we like?
Yes, that's what. Okay, let's finish. Okay, wait, how much time we have? Okay, okay, we got time. Let's finish on a positive note with two
Yeah.
absolute bangers.
Yes, these
Um,
are awesome.
these are these are good. That's a word I'm going to use for these guys and not for the other one. These are good.
More like badlings.
Uh, wow. Um, so up next we have Dragonborn. So there was
Mm.
actually a bit of negative feedback with the Dragonborn in the previous one, which was interesting. Because basically, obviously, okay, look, we all love Fizzbands. All right,
Mhm.
Fizzbands is an absolutely outstanding book with amazing magic items, amazing monster snap blocks, and amazing features for different types of Dragonborn. Um, you were never going to cap that. Like you were never going to surpass that without Dragonborn becoming super broken.
Mm.
But you certainly didn't have to backstep because that's kind of what happened. Um, is that they were backstepped because as they appeared in the original one, the first UA where they listed them out, um, you pick your draconic ancestry as normal. Your breath weapon is an action. It's set at a 15-foot cone. Um, it does. Let me just double check the damage. Actually, does it damage? Does oh, okay. So previously it was in the last one. It was a D10 plus your character level, which wasn't bad in terms of damage. It scales up, pretty nicely.
Yeah.
Now it just scales up like a cantrip. Where at 5, 11, 5. Yes, sorry. So one, it's a D10, two D10 at 5, 11, and 17. It goes up a 4 D10 max. You can use it a number of times equal to proficiency, which I think you could do previously. So basically, in the first one, they were like, in Fizzbands, you're able to use your breath weapon as part of an attack action
Yeah.
as one of those attacks. In the previous version in the UA, they were like, oh, it's an action, which is a step backwards because it's a big debuff if you have to choose between that or a weapon attack or a spell or whatever.
Yeah.
So now you can just do it as part of the action, which is cool. You can also choose whether you want it to be a 15-foot cone or a 30-foot line. Brilliant. Because I did feel it was weird that they kind of just disregarded the lines, particularly if
Yeah.
you're like a lightning or something, just
Yeah.
a big bolt of lightning makes sense. You get, 1 second now, breath weapon damage resistance equal to your draconic thing. That makes perfect sense. You have dark vision, that's still there. And you learn, you instinctively know draconic as well. That is actually technically removed. Interesting. In the new version. But it is replaced by something very, very cool.
This is basically the Draconic Sorcerer's like 14th level ability.
Yeah, yeah, completely. Which is kind of interesting when you think about it, because I know a lot of people that play
Now,
Draconic Sorcerers are Dragonborns.
Yeah,
You know.
this is true. No, this is 10 minutes or until you're incapacitated, and I don't believe there is a limit on the actual Dragonborn Sorcerer one. I'm just going to pull up my Dragonborn Sorcerer sheet because she has it at the moment. And I don't believe there's a limit, or at least we've been playing as if there isn't. But one of the two of us may have missed something.
You might want to clarify that.
I thought it was for an hour, but I believe it's kind of like.
And an interesting thing about this new Draconic Flight feature is that you get it at 5th level, but the spectral wings that you summon mimic or look like the damage type you do. So if you are lightning, they will look like a pair of wings made of lightning. If you are a fire, they'll be made of fire. Horrifically, if you're a black dragonborn who breathes acid, you will have wings made of
Yeah,
acid,
sorry,
which is terrifying.
That's pretty sick. Just as a clarification, the 14th level Draconic Sorcerer, my player hasn't been getting away with murder. They just can pop out the dragon wings anytime they want and put them back as a bonus action.
How bad? So I guess this would just let you do it more limited but earlier.
Yeah, it would.
Um,
Which, like, you could still do the Dragonborn Sorcerer Draconic thing, and like you get that at 5th level. So by then you're a good few levels at your sorcerer. You could almost like theme it
exactly,
as like you could almost like tie the class and the species together in that way, and theme it as like you've hit 5th level now. More of your Draconic ancestry has manifested, and then when you get to 14th level, it manifests truly, and now you can always fly. Sort of like how in the Spyro the Dragon games where you could glide, and then late in the game you will just get the ability to fly.
Yeah, exactly. You go to one of those portal thingies and they give you fly speed and you can zoom around. Oh, they were all so cool. But But yeah, I this is good. This is kind of more of a they've gone back to what made the Fizzband stuff good, and giving it the Draconic Flight ability is really, really cool.
Mm.
I haven't looked at the Fizzbands one in a while, and I'm just going to take a quick dip into
They
that.
did very much specify on it. They had a question of so what happens with the Fizzbands Dragonborns, were all the changes there, and I believe Crawford said that like same as anything, same as how like in the current. There's like a Fizzbands Dragonborn and there's the base Dragonborn. This will stand alongside the Fizzbands Dragonborns.
Yeah, I will say my one hang up about the whole one D&D thing is that the game is about to get very muddled in terms of what iterations of what class or ancestry or whatever you're going with, or and so things might get a little bit kind of hairy
One
in terms of
thing,
like knowing what's what.
yeah, but there is the one thing that is handy is that on D&D Beyond you can click the option to not show legacy content and it'll only show the stuff
That's
that
true.
is there. Because I have to do it all the time when I'm making new characters because I see like 19 million options for species and I'm like, sorry?
Yeah. I'm just looking here. I want to take a quick look at the Dragonborn as they appear here. So yeah, it's the multiple D10s for the damage type. It is
One of them can imbue a weapon. I think it's the chromatic Dragonborns. You can imbue your weapon with like 1d6 energy of the chromatic type that you are.
For one, no, actually, they become immune to their damage type. So they have resistance
Okay.
normally, and they can just choose to become immune to the type of damage associated with
It's
their
been a while
ancestry.
since I looked at those Fizzbands Dragonborns. I swear there was one that could add their like elemental type as
I
damage
think
to
it's
a
one of the other
weapon.
ones. Just a second now. So that's the chromatic one. They get their breath. It's actually set at a 30. I remember actually now. The chromatics are set at a 30-foot line. We go down to the Gem Dragonborn. They have the Psionic Mind ability, and also they get flight for at 5th level for 1 minute, which I think is less than this, right? This is 10 minutes. This is 10 minutes with your these elemental wings in this new version, whereas it's 1 minute with them. But they also get the ability to communicate telepathically. Their breath is a 15-foot cone, and scales up similarly in damage. And then finally we have the metallics. Their breath is also a cone, scales up the same in damage. They get the metallic breath weapon, or they get the secondary breath weapon actually.
Yeah.
When you take the attack action, and they can be. Let me see now. Second breath weapon when you take an action, your turn you place one attacks with breath. Oh yes, and they can choose either enervating breath, which is a con save or become incapacitated, or repulsion breath, which will knock you back if you fail a save. Yeah, none of them have a thing that lets you mod their weapons, but that sounds familiar when you were mentioning
I
it to
think
me.
it may be an earlier version of the
Like a UA
UA.
thing,
Yeah.
maybe. But either way, that's yeah. This is a good version though. I mean, this is not. It is not like broken good, and it's also not like weaker than what's come before. I feel like this would stand on par
Yeah.
with what we see in Fizzbands, and I feel like between what we see in Fizzbands and what's here in this new version of the player handbook one, both of those now are comparable, and I think they're both versions that I could see myself picking for different reasons and different type of combos and on characters, you know?
Oh, totally.
Yep. Um, and we'll probably sign off with this last one here, which
Yes.
I adore. Do
It's
you want
the
to take this
big
one?
boys. Yeah, sure. So now it is the Goliaths. So towering over most folk, Goliaths are distant descendants of the giants. Each Goliath bears the blessings of the first giants, blessings that manifest in various supernatural boons, including the ability to quickly grow and temporarily approach the height of the Goliath's gigantic kin. Goliaths have physical characteristics that are reminiscent of the giants of their family lines. For example, some Goliaths look like stone giants, while others resemble fire giants. Whatever giants they count as kin, Goliaths have forged their own path in the multiverse, unencumbered by the internecine conflicts that have ravaged giantkind for ages, and seek heights above those reached by their ancestors. I have never heard that word before. But yes, this is very cool. Humanoid still, medium size, about 7 to 8 feet tall. That's all the same. Speed 35 feet. I believe they used to have 30.
Yeah, yeah, they were 30 before.
I
It makes
think
sense if you're
your
gonna be
mic
taller, your stride is
has
bigger.
Connor. Will you put your
Yeah, sorry, my mic's up. I was drinking.
your head?
Yeah, 35 feet is an improvement, which makes sense if you're taller, you have a
Yeah.
longer stride. You know,
Lifespan 80 years on average. I think that's slightly longer, but not by a whole pile. I think they had like 70 or 675 or something like that.
I am just gonna double check.
Cuckoo. Uh,
Goliaths, Goliaths. I love Goliaths.
Goliath.
Goliath. They are. I think. Oh, previously they had the lifespan thing where it's like you live approximately the same as any other race,
Okay, yeah.
or species, I should say. Um, yeah.
So here's where the
So now
big
it's
yeah.
you go. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So here's where the big changes for the Goliath come in. You have your giant ancestry. Previously, all Goliaths got these stones endurance feat, or sorry, racial feature where if you were a species feature rather, where if you were attacked, you can and take damage, you can use your reaction to reduce that damage by 1d12 plus your con modifier, I believe it is.
Yeah, I think it's the same. It's a D12 and add your con modifier to the roll.
Yeah,
Correct. Yeah.
and that has that, and that is still there. But that is now tied to the stone giant lineage for the Goliath. And it's the same thing when you take damage, use your action to roll, roll d12, add your Constitution modifier to the roll, and reduce your damage by that. But we now have a whole pile of others. We have the Cloud Giant one called Cloud's Jaunt. As a bonus action, you can magically teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. For fire giants, you have Fire's Burn. When you hit a target with an attack roll and deal damage to it, you can also deal 1d10 fire damage to that target. So almost like a fiery smite nearly on that one.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
Frost's Chill, a similar one from the Frost Giant lineage. When you hit a target with an attack roll and deal damage to it, you deal 1d6 cold damage, so slightly less. But in compensation for less damage, you now remove 10 feet of speed from that person, which can be pretty until the start of your next turn rather for the round.
Yeah.
We have Hill's Tumble, which Connor, you had some opinions about earlier. When you hit a larger, smaller creature with an attack roll and deal damage, you can knock that target prone. So there's no save. It's just legs out from underneath you.
Yeah, well, Gavin pointed out in our group chat for our D&D group that is quite powerful. And it is, but it also it's you can only do these. So, okay, so originally with Stone's Endurance, it was like it's like a once per long rest or something.
Yeah.
In Mordenkainen's updated that to be proficiency times per day, which I think is good and makes the giant very or the Goliath, I should say, very, very viable as a choice as opposed to.
Tank.
Oh yeah, very good, especially when you have the Stone's Endurance up to 6 times a day. And similarly now all of these can be used proficiency times per day. And I think that I do think Hill's Tumble is very, very powerful. But I don't know, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, you know what, it's not that broken.
Yeah.
Like if you can only do it a maximum, and that's the highest level, realistically you're going to get that 2 to 4 times a day in most campaigns, because you're not going to be hitting those, those 17, 18, 19 levels where you're getting it 6 times a day. And even then, yeah, it's not huge. It's advantage on a roll. At that level, there's already a bunch of other stuff that could give you advantage on rolls against someone, so it's not huge.
Yeah, it is good though for sure. It's like there's no.
Great ability, yeah.
Then there's Stone's Endurance, which you've all already talked about. Storm Thunder for the Storm Giant. When you take damage from a creature within 60 feet of you, you can use a reaction to deal 1d8 thunder damage to that creature. Which I love the idea, like something hits you and you just like point at it and a lightning bolt strikes it from like down out of the skies, like specifically fuck you.
Yeah.
After that, we get a large form, which is quite similar to the Dorgar. Starting at 5th level, you gain the ability to supernaturally grow. As a bonus action, you change your size to large, provided you're in a big enough space. This transformation lasts for 10 minutes or until you end it as a bonus action. During that duration, you have advantage on strength checks, and your speed increases by 10 feet, so 45 feet, which is pretty awesome. Once you use this trait, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. And then you also have the normal powerful build, which I believe it hasn't changed from this current edition, where powerful build,
Yes.
you have advantage on any saving throw you make to end the grapple condition on yourself. You also count as one size larger for determining your carrying capacity and the weight you can push, drag, or lift. That bit is still the same, but now you have advantage on getting out of grapples.
That bit's the same. You also had a thing before called Little Giant in Mordenkainen's, which was you have proficiency and in athletics as part of that. The athletics part is gone. You just have an advantage on saves or checks to end the grapple effect on yourself. Personally, I think I would prefer the athletics, but that's only minor. This is really good. Crawford pointed out in the video I watched that the large form and the wings for the dragon were kind of 2 holes they felt were in those two species, because dragons fly and giants are big. So if we're doing a dragon species and a giant species, we should probably have them share some of that. So it makes perfect sense that both of them would get something more akin to the creatures they're kind of based on, you know.
Yeah. I was when I read this initially, I thought, geez, it'll just be nuts if you do like a Rune Knight Goliath, but I realized the giant might set your size to a specific size, and this only gets you to large. So, but it can spare you some stuff. It also doesn't have the damage bonus that either enlarge or giants might gives you.
Correct. There is some stuff that would like your speed increases was in this, which I don't think it does
No,
with
it doesn't.
Giant's Might.
No, you don't get that with Giant's Might. You don't get a. Which
Yeah.
I always thought it was think is weird with stuff like Giant's Might or Enlarge and this. Like this gives you speed, but like if you're growing a size and your weapons and all your gear grow with you, because that's what most of these stuff say happens, is like all your gear and stuff grows with
Yeah.
you to accommodate you being able to use it. I've always thought you should maybe get like an extra 5 feet of range because you're going up a whole size category. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think you do get that with that giant barbarian subclass they did
yes,
a while back.
the path of
That was at least
what was that one called? Path of the. It's
it
Path of the Giant.
was it? I think it was just
I
Path of
think
the
it's
Giant.
Path of the Creative, those folks at Wizards.
I wanted to point out. So, first of all, I love this version of the Goliath. I think Goliaths are super, super cool. And I'm really glad that we're getting a bit of love for them here. I already liked what they did with the Goliath in Mordenkainen's, you know, kind of buffing the power a little bit.
Yeah.
And now giving this variety with all the different kind of ancestries and the different giants, I love. I did this at the start of our campaign 3 years ago. I did something very, very similar at the start of our campaign where I took the base Goliath. And there's some things that are a bit old and a bit outdated now because I don't have it based on proficiency times per day. But I wanted to create other types of giant ancestries for Goliaths so they can be different, you know, different types of Goliaths. So if we're going to go through them, not all of them are the same, and a couple of them I had different reasonings behind wanting to do this, but Stone's Endurance stays the exact same. My Fire Goliath one basically had the ability of the Storm Giant here, where as a reaction, you can like hit someone with a bit of damage, almost like Hellish Rebuke. So for my fire, it was called Wildfire. When you take damage on an attack or a spell within 5 feet of you, use a reaction to cause damage, fire damage to the attacker, except it was a D8 plus your con mod. I wanted to be kind of on par with Stone's Endurance, where it's like D12 plus your con. So I had that. And again, at the time, it was you can't use it again to finish a short rest, which that's the old Stone's Endurance thing.
Yeah.
What else do I have? My Cloud Giant one was different, but only because I had a tough time coming up with something for Cloud. When you're forced to make a dexterity or strength saving throw, you can use a reaction to gain advantage on the save. You can't use, because I figured they were kind of like Cloud, they're light on their feet, but also they're strong.
I do really like this one though. The teleport.
Oh, much better, much better. And also, the Cloud Giants are very magically inclined, so it makes sense you would have something like that. The Frost one is not too dissimilar to the actual Frost one. So this is when you hit someone with an attack roll, you deal the d6 damage and reduce their speed by 10. Mine was it's called Biting Frost. Numbing Cold slows your enemy's escape. When a creature attempts to move out of your range, you can use a reaction to reduce the creature's speed by half until the end of their next turn. So you don't get to hit them, but you do basically like slow them getting away, which means you're almost certainly going to kill them again on your turn or whatever. And then the Storm Goliath, I basically swapped Storm and Fire actually. My Storm Goliath one was basically when you hit, it's called Lightning Strike. And when you hit a creature with a melee attack, you can choose to do a d6, so 2d6 lightning damage to the target. Again, so similar enough. So the Storm and Fire are swapped, but like very similar.
Yeah.
The Frost is pretty on par. I didn't have one for Hill. For lower reasons, Hill Giants in my world are ogres.
For lower reasons, that's all I'm saying.
No, it's just like I had a whole thing with the gods like competing to make the best Goliath, and then the god of the hill giants was all like, or no, sorry, the hill giants made them, sorry, and the hill giants were kind of like, well, we don't want to be like, you know, outdone here. If we make something better than us, the Titans might decide we don't need the hill giants anymore. So they made like the ogre, which was like big and dumb and brutish and stuff like that, and they're like, yep, here's what we made. And they're like, how dare you like defile giant kind by like, you know, making anything but your absolute, because they're the titans and the giants and everything, they're all about crafting and building things to perfection, and they're like, how dare you build something subpar and present it to us. And then the titans like struck them down and punished them and everything. But that all the other giant races tried their best, or giant types I should say, tried their best to make something, which is why all the other Goliaths in my world are really, really cool and have all these abilities, because their creators actually wanted them to be good, whereas the hill giants were kind of a bit, what's the word, when they're kind of anyway. Long sigh. No, what's the word? They were kind of jealous or kind of like petty, and they thought, oh well, we're not going to have make anything that's going to potentially outdo us. Yeah. So that's my whole lore reason there. In case you were, I know you didn't ask. I know nobody even cares, but there you go. But yeah. So there's more to go through. We haven't even gotten to the feats here. Yeah. We have a few spells. There's one thing I wanted to point out actually, just while we were on the. So later on they list out the arcane spell list here and stuff like that, and I think they listed it in one of the previous UAs before. And people were kind of concerned because they didn't see Eldritch Blast appearing on the list. And we were talking about how a while ago they took a couple kind of notes from Warlock and how they designed the new cleric.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that Eldritch Blast won't be a spell anymore. I think it'll be a specific class feature. Yeah. And I think you might get... There's another thing, and here's my prediction, and it's something else I also have a note in my phone about.
Okay.
I thought a while back it'd be cool if individual Warlock subclasses got the option to augment their Eldritch Blast in a way that, like, you know, only they can do, because it's to do with their patron and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we might see something like that where everyone, all Warlocks get Eldritch Blast. It's not a spell; it's just a specific ability that they can do, and then each subclass of Warlock will get the option to augment that to their own flavor or with some additional ability effect or something like that. That's my prediction. You heard it here first.
And what, like, collapse those Warlock invocations that are related to Eldritch Blast down into the subclass?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, have you know, some of them are kind of like subclass
I could
specific
see, like,
and stuff.
Is it Pact of the Depths, the one, or the one where you're like the Kraken is your patron?
The Fathom, the Unfathomable, Fathomless, there you go.
Fathomless, yeah. The Fathomless one. If you do that one, like, I could see maybe that one gives you the... Do you know there's that Eldritch Blast one that when you hit someone, it saps them of 10 feet of speed?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But again, yeah, everyone will get their own unique thing. That's my prediction.
For the Fathomless one, your Eldritch Blast turns into like this like spectral tentacle that shoots out, and like give it like the one that moves someone 5 feet or grapples someone and pushes them.
Yeah.
And like the tentacle like reaches out and like just pushes them or pulls them.
I like that. The genie one could be like, depending on what genie you pick, maybe you can choose to have force or that specific damage type if you need for some reason.
Why would you ever change from force?
I don't know. Because they're wearing a brooch of shielding or whatever.
I do force damage now, Connor.
You do force damage?
I do force damage now, yeah.
Oh, is this because your
my shield
thing level up?
My shield reflects damage now. Yes.
But Martin.
Yes, Connor.
That is all the time we have for today.
Whoop, whoop. That was a good one, D&D.
That was a good one, D&D. I'm very happy with this, and we can maybe dive into some of the rules glossary and stuff next week.
Yeah, there's enough there for us to talk about for another episode.
Absolutely. For at least one more, not necessarily 4 more like the previous one was.
Yes, not that 37-page whopper that we got served the other time.
Yeah. If you have any questions you'd like us to share, stories you'd like... I messed up already. If you have any questions you'd like us to ask, stories you'd like us to share, or topics you would like us to cover, please tweet us at MicFlayers on Twitter. You can find our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Anchor Breaker, and Radio Republic. Martin, where can people find you on the internet?
While it still exists, you can find me on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, which is down below my screen here. You can also find me on the Micflayers podcast Twitter account at MicFlayersPod. What about you, Connor? Where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on Twitter and now Hive.
Oh yes, sorry, I'm also on Hive, and so is the podcast. Both at those exact same.
All under the same name.
Yeah, all same.
It's just a contingency. We don't know yet.
It's called hedging your bets, folks.
Exactly. You can find me on Twitter and Hive at 0.Connor, ZeroPointConor. 1N, very important. And as always, every Friday, 6 p.m. Irish time here on the Micflayers podcast and all the aforementioned platforms. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this UA as much as we did. Don't forget to offer your feedback. Very important that we all offer our feedback on this
Fill
when
out
it
survey.
becomes available. And yeah, we'll see you all next week for the next episode of the Micflayers podcast. Later, guys.
See you, folks.